Hello, in this academy you will go through together the Isaac Leadership Development Model, which is something that is really crucial as us as EB to understand how do Isaac actually develop leadership. So in this academy, there are three main questions that we're going to address here. The first one is what leadership do Isaac actually develops? The second one is how do we develop leadership in Isaac? So what is our leadership development actually look like? How do we do this? And finally is how do we measure our leadership development progress? So how do we know that we are actually developing leadership in every young people that we engage with? How do we measure it? What is the KPIs? What are the tools that we're using? So we are going to explain all of these in this academy. And there's actually would like to start from this nice one-pager. So I'm sure you have gone through it a few times, which this is basically outlining all the essence of this organization in this lovely little one page, which go through what is the history, what is the context that when the organization actually started at, and why we do what we do, what is the main thing that we are doing here as an organization. Basically, here we are striving to achieve peace and fulfill humankind potential, but there is a very, very big goal. So how do we actually do this is we believe that we develop leadership in every young people that we engage with, because we believe that they are the future of this world and in the society. So we would like to enable young people to develop leadership through practical experience in challenging environments. And when we talk about these, how do we actually develop leadership? I have a question in mind, is that what kind of leadership are we actually developing when we say we are youth leadership development organization? So maybe you also ask yourself, like, yeah, leadership is a very broad concept, and we often talk about leadership development. But what are the leadership that we are actually talking about here? So as an organization, AI think that it's really important for us to define what kind of leadership that we are actually developing, and so they conduct a survey 5 years ago to really want to understand how Isaac experience is actually developing a certain kind of leadership. And they conduct surveys asking alumni, current Isaacers in different levels, for example, MC, members, VPs, SCPs, to offer in the surveys and really define how Isaac experience actually shape an individuals. And they come to a conclusion that as Isaac, we are actually developing 4 different leadership qualities in every young people that we engage with, which are being well citizens, being self-aware, being able to empower others, and being solution-oriented. So what does it mean by being well citizen? Is that they are aware of what is happening in the world today, and they actually enjoyed taking active role in contributing to make the world a better place. So they are proactively looking for to make an impact in this world, and they are also self-aware. So they understand what they're good at, what is important to them, what are their values, what they are passionate about, and what is their strength, what they can actually contribute to this world and actually make an impact on. So it's really important for us as Isaac, because especially in today's context, when there are so many world leaders that do not actually take a point on what they preach at, they are not trustworthy. For us as an organization, we believe that in most of the world leaders today, they have to be trustworthy, but first they have to be self-aware of understanding who they are, but they're also constantly working towards what they believe in and what they preach they are. And thirdly, our leaders are able to empower others, so they're able to communicate the ideas clearly, and they are able to actually engage others to create a space for everybody to collaborate and actually acting towards a certain cause. Because this is really important when we have a vision, but we need to be able to engage the people around us, because this is how, when we can engage people to become a movement. That's how when we can create an impact. And finally, is being solution-oriented. Especially, this is very important quality, especially in the context of the world today when everything is changing so fast with digitalizations, with all of the changes that's happening in the world today, that our leaders need to be flexible and they are able to take risks because there are so many changes and nothing is constant. So how can leaders today needs to be able to find solutions all the time, because there are challenges coming up all the time when things changes so fast. So this is a leadership quality that for us as AIESEC we believe is super important to possess, and our experience are actually delivering these 4 qualities for our leaders today. But you might wonder, how do we actually develop these 4 leadership qualities in our people, in our EPs, in our membership? So basically, as AIESEC, we deliver this is for our membership. So we deliver team standards. So team standards is actually something that we're gonna explore in the next EB Academy, where we will talk a bit more about what are the baseline activities that you as a team leader should deliver to your team members to ensure that they are actually going through an AIESEC experience, that they are actually having an individual and challenging goals, that they know what is their role, and they have a very challenging goals and roles in their AIESEC journey. So they are able to actually reflect on the experience when they feel challenged, and they receive feedback and they understand, okay, I'm actually good at this, and I need to improve on this, and they reflect on their own values and eventually reinvent who they are as a person. And basically, through team standards, we are facilitating in and out their journey for our members or even EPs to go through this journey. So eventually, they will be able to develop these leadership qualities that for us as an organization we promise to deliver. So it's really important that we understand this, because this is for us as AIESEC, we deliver or develop leadership throughout this model. And I've actually go through these by myself, and I realized that I'm really good at being self-aware and understand where my strength lies at, and I utilize those to empower the people around me. But it's only when I go through certain kind of challenges that I realize that, oh, I'm actually good at this, but I also need to improve on my communication skills, for example. And actually, as I facilitate these for me, and I go through these in and out the journey for multiple times. But here, when we talk about our leadership development model, what can we actually do as AIESECers to ensure that this journey or this experience is actually catalyzed? How can we make sure that it is actually happening faster and more often than we want it to be? How can we ensure that every AIESECers is actually going through these multiple times? Because when they go through it more times, then they will actually develop the leadership qualities more and faster, right? So here I would like to introduce you a concept of lead. Lead is basically a space that we facilitate to ensure that our members or even EPs go through, so they can actually catalyze the experience that they go through in the in and outer journey. So we give them a space to reflect on the journey that they have go through with AIESEC, and they realize like, oh, I'm actually good at this, or I actually need to work on something else. So it's a space that we spark changes in them throughout the AIESEC journey. And so lead is especially designed spaces, and there's 3 different elements that consist of in lead. First is the lead content. So this is super important, as it is based on leadership qualities and defining elements. So this has to be particularly based on the 12 defining elements that based on our leadership development qualities, because lead space is tailorized to ensure that we are actually catalyzing the experience to develop the 4 AIESEC qualities that we have. And for each AIESEC qualities is broken down into 3 defining elements, which define what exactly does it mean to be a well citizen, what exactly does it mean to be self-aware, and it's only when each lead space is designed based on one of these defining elements, then it is a lead space that helps to catalyze these leadership development experiences. And secondly is lead facilitation. So lead space is a specially designed space because it's a space that is like the facilitator itself is not somebody who actually deliver content, but is actually, we call them as a host. So they are hosting a space to ensure that the person or the delegates who go through the space is actually the person who take ownership of the experiences. So they're the one who actively, because lead doesn't necessarily need a very clear outcome. So normally in sessions, we need to have a very clear outcome. By the end, the delegate should understand these, or they should, by the end, should be able to deliver an operation cycle, for example. But for lead, the outcome can be different for everyone. So for example, for delegate 1, they can be, oh, I realize that I need to improve on my public speaking skills. For delegate 2, it might be, oh, I actually want to understand that who am I as a person better and what do I have to work on. So everybody might be coming out from a lead in a different space. So for the responsibility for the host or for the facilitator is mainly to ensure that this space is hosted for the person, but it doesn't need to ensure that every single person who attend the space have the clear outcomes that is achieved. And finally is lead environment. So there's actually 6 different learning environments that you can use to facilitate lead. And mostly and currently in our organization, as I said, UK. So most of the lead is delivered in conference and seminars environments. And for those who went to conferences, we actually deliver lead in conferences in Maxis and also part of the LDS. And in NSC, you'll also go through lead with us in a conference and seminar environment. But also there's different style or different sort of environments that you can deliver lead. For example, one-to-one. You can utilize coaching to really help the person to explore what is, for example, what is my passion, what is the passions that the person wants to achieve. What do these persons want to contribute to this world and what they are most angry about, for example. So it can be a one-to-one conversations, or it can even be a virtual space when AI is designing lead courses online for EPs to be able to actually go through by themselves. So it can also be a TED Talk, and that can be in various format. But the most important is lead is a spaces that's designed to be based on all of these as content, and that is the only defining sort of elements that define what is a lead space is. And through this lead, we actually provide an experience or a space to ensure that our people, for example, our members and our EPs, actually catalyze the experience to go through an inner and outer journey faster. So, for example, if a team leader actually sit down and have one-to-one with the team members to talk about, okay, one of these, so adopt and show resilience in the face of challenge. I want to ensure that my people actually have these solution-oriented mindsets and be resilient when they face challenges. So the team leader can actually have conversations with the team members to talk about, okay, what are the challenges that you have faced, what have you do, how did you feel when you're facing challenges, what can you do better next time. And this can also be a lead spaces that can be very powerful to develop a certain kind of mindset for your members. And then you might ask, so how do I know that I'm actually developing leadership in our members or in our EPs? So as an organization, we think it's really important that we have a measure or a tool to help us to measure how successful we are actually developing leadership in our people. So we have, the AI has actually also designed a survey or assessment or a tool called the Leadership Development Assessment. So it's helping us, especially the EPs, to get insights on the development journey, on the leadership development qualities that we have defined as an organization. So it's basically a survey that they have to take before they start the ISEC journey. So for members and EPs, before they go on an ISEC experience, for example, for a member, before they are placed as a TMP, they have to take a test. And at the end, they also have to take another test to close off their journey to ensure that they can compare the score on how well they have been developing these qualities, and it can be shown on the XPAR profile.